Hi and welcome to a competitive or actually a tournament gameplay video of Commander. As you can see, the thumbnail is a little bit different compared to normal. You see Chaos Tournament. So this is actually a tale of the tape, a game from the Chaos live stream that I casted, recorded and edited. It's been a lot of me, Pontus and Rograkh, but now you get to see some actual other people playing, and also this is actually from a tournament, so you get to see how a tournament game kinda looks like, and if I have to be honest, we kinda goof around, me and Pontus and Rograkh, a tiny bit. Now, if you don't know who Chaos are, they are organizing tournaments. They organize, as you can see here, the Mox Master, the Chaos Tournament, the Mythic Lotus Gaming, and the newest one, Pantheon, which is a European webcam time zone tournament. And the tournament match we're going to look at pretty soon is from the February 4th. If you're actually interested in joining and playing some of these events, then link in the description below to this webpage. Also a link in the description below to this specific place, where you can register for Pantheon, as there are gonna be more tournaments continuously going forward this entire year. But also a link in the description below to Chaos YouTube channel, where they are hosting their live streams. You can actually see me and my friend William up there. The starting player in this match is Espen, playing Turbo Thrasios. It's a Temur Rograkh Thrasios deck with Minsk and Tesseret as potential planeswalkers, Hullbreaker Horror, grindy engines like Seedborn Muse and Consecrated Sphinx, big artifact package, and of course Underworld Breach. The next player in turn order is Tymna. He's going by the name Ignacy inside the game. He's playing Blue Farm, Tymna Kraum, Teferi, Birgi, Lofo, Oppo Agent, Orcish, and this typical Adnos and Breach stuff you see from Blue Farm. I've actually played against this person in real time, face to face, and he's a really good Tymna Kraum player. He also plays a bunch of Godo from time to time. Third position we have Ball from Split Second, another YouTube channel, link in the description below of this video for that as well, that is also uploading cEDH gameplay content similar to this YouTube channel. He's playing a deck based by Comedian, Bruse and Thrasios. I think Comedian have sent something like that this is his favorite deck. He's playing Sirda, Seedborn Muse as big grindy engines together with Thrasios, Kinan, the Revi Emil and Gaia's Cradle, Devoted Druid, and they were going to find the Swift reconfiguration together with Devoted Druid, the One Ring but no Underworld Breach. And the last player in turn order is Samurai Dancer with his Kediss and Malcolm. This is actually his favorite deck. He's actually played this deck on this YouTube channel a few times. And he's also won Mox Masters with Kediss Malcolm. So the guy knows what he's doing. Now this video is its first of its kind, and everything you hear is actually from the actual live stream. Everything that I'm saying in the video. Love to hear your feedback and suggestions for potential improvements. But now, let's fire off, and I hope you enjoy the fight. We have a command tower land drop into a Bird of Paradise, followed up with a Mana Crypt and a pass. Mystic Remora from Ignacy, also known as Tymna on Tymna and Kraum. Fetch land into an Noble Hierarch, not feeding the Mystic Remora from Ball, playing Bruse Thrasios, passing the turn afterwards. Malcolm Kediss is casting a gamble by exiling a Simian Spirit Guide from his hand. So we're gonna randomize the gamble here by rolling a die. We're flipping rolling a 4 from the die and discarding a Cyclonic Rift to the graveyard from the gamble. He's playing Volcanic Island into Mana Crypt, post gamble, and Malcolm and pass. It is now Thrasios Rograkh's turn 2, drawing a card, not losing life to the Mana Crypt. Finding a Volcanic Island from a Misty Rainforest, and using that to cast a Thrasios, playing around that Mystic Remora. Tymna Kraum is paying for the fish, playing a Plateau and passing the turn to Ball, the Bruse Thrasios player. Bruse Thrasios is finding a land with a Misty Rainforest and casting Thrasios, not feeding the fish, and plays a Bird of Paradise with the Noble Hierarch. Malcolm Kediss is cracking a fetch land, Polluted Delta, and loses the Mana Crypt flip. After finding Steam Vents with his fetch land, he's casting Kediss and then going to combat with Malcolm. This is gonna do the typical Kediss Malcolm trick where he connects at one player but deals damage to all other 2 players, generating a total of 3 treasures with the Kediss trick. Land drop from Thrasios Rograkh. And a Consecrated Sphinx! Like, so far we haven't really fed the fish one bit, we've basically just casted creatures more or less, but this is gonna be an enormous value engine unless someone can get rid of it. And it could easily take over the match. But in response, we're casting a Born Upon a Wind from Tymna Kraum just to basically draw a card here before the Consecrated Sphinx is in play. But the Consecrated Sphinx resolves and he attacks with Thrasios. We have a response to solve the Consecrated Sphinx, an Otawara from Malcolm Kediss, sending the big Consecrated Sphinx back to his hand before Tymna Kraum gets to draw his card for turn. Tymna Kraum pays for Mystic Remora and draws a card for turn. Volcanic Island as a land drop from Tymna Kraum. And then he has pass, playing the control game now that Consecrated Sphinx is gone. He is sitting on the card draw engine that so far haven't drawn that many cards, but things could change as hand size are still pretty good. Hallowed Fountain from Bruse Thrasios, land drop. Here is what we talked about before. Dockside Extortionist. Everyone pass on the dockside. An ETB trigger. Malcolm Kediss is sacrificing his treasures, reducing the treasure total count, making it generate a total of 3 treasures. So 2 mana to generate 3 treasures, but also get rid of 2 treasures from Malcolm Kediss. After Dockside, we're following up with a Seedborn Muse. This is another potential game-changing moment because this is gonna be a huge value engine with the amount of mana the Bruse Thrasios player is sitting in play with. Now, Consecrated Sphinx could come into play on Thrasios Rograkh's next upcoming turn, but before that we're gonna have some potential Seedborn Muse activations together with Thrasios if this gets to stick. The question is also now, how are people gonna prioritize things considering the potential board state that Consecrated Sphinx could come back? He's also increasing his mana production by casting a Sol Ring post Seedborn Muse. This is gonna trigger Mystic Remora. The sequence here was kinda key because he wanted to decrease the amount of potential interaction that the Mystic Remora could have had by casting Sol Ring after the Seedborn Muse. Thrasios is actually attacking at Tymna and Kraum for 1 damage, but it's also going to untap together with the rest of his mana and lands if Seedborn Muse gets to stay. So the turn goes to Malcolm Kediss, where both Seedborn and Malcolm gets to untapped, and we have a Crypt roll. He takes damage and draws a card for his turn. Samurai is playing Plaza of Heroes. Then we are attacking with both Malcolm and Kediss, generating 3 treasures with a Malcolm trick. Malcolm Kediss is actually casting Imperial Recruiter post-combat. He has a bunch of options here. He can find a clone effect to clone the dockside with a phantasmal image, or he can find Glinthorn Buccaneer to basically produce the combo attempt next turn. He can also find his own dockside. Another great potential option is to find Magda, Brazen Outlaw, because next turn he will have enough treasures to activate Magda and find Niv Mizzet Parun. Because how this game is going, we are putting value into play, and if you're finding something like a combo piece like Glinthorn here, you could become the target and then the value engine gets to stay. So finding your own value engine that could be viewed weaker compared to a Consecrated Sphinx, it could survive. However, he's finding Fairy Mastermind, that is also a pseudo value engine considering the card draw that people are going to do. We have a Thrasios activation on the stack, but in response to the Thrasios activation, we have a red Elemental Blast that's trying to destroy the Thrasios, basically making that the Seedborn Muse Thrasios doesn't get to do its thing. However, this also means that we're losing the red Elemental Blast against the potential Consecrated Sphinx that is coming up potentially soon. The Thrasios activation resolves finding an Alfetto Alchemist, which is basically a 2-mana cost mana dork. And then the turn goes to Thrasios Rograkh. We don't have a Consecrated Sphinx from the Thrasios Bruse. We have a completely different take. We're going Gilded Drake. Now, Thrasios Rograkh is still playing Thrasios, so taking Seedborn Muse here is just equalizing the same thing. This is also not tapping out, because casting Consecrated Sphinx here means that he can't protect his Seedborn Muse when he's trying to pass to his end step. Now Fairy Mastermind is being cast and put into play by Malcolm Kediss. And then we have a Thrasios activation. And Thrasios finds Training Grounds, the perfect synergy here to finalize the things, and he casts it with his Bird of Paradise. This is looking great for the starting player Esper, Thrasios Rograkh currently, who also still has his Consecrated Sphinx in his hand. Bruse Thrasios has been interacted and kinda stopped, and Tymna Kraum has basically been sitting and interacting, and Malcolm Kediss have only been putting weaker value units into play compared to Rograkh Thrasios, who definitely looks like the big threat during this match. And the turn is passed, and everything gets to be untapped. Tymna Kraum is paying for Mystic Remora and then casting Dockside Extortionist. Dockside is generating a total of 7 treasures. Malcolm Kediss could have sacrificed 3 of those to reduce it from 7 to 4, but he didn't choose to do so. Tymna Kraum basically being a little bit behind compared to Thrasios Rograkh here might be the correct choice to giving him a helping hand. Teferi Time Reveler is a potential Grand Abolisher variant that can also become a secondary Dockside in this situation by returning Dockside back to his hand, recasting it for more mana, and then potentially trying to win here, right and now. Depending on what he has in his hand, a follow-up from this could be devastating, and they need to basically find something. Therefore, Thrasios from the Thrasios Rogue's is activating as much as he can. We are casting a Code of Calling here, I predict, looking at the creatures becoming tapped for a potential Convoke. The Code of Calling hasn't been placed on stack, but this is a reveal of capacity by basically tapping your creatures. The only real card that actually does that is Code of Calling. So this is also giving away potential information to everyone around the table that there is a potential Code of Calling in that player's hand. And there it is, Code of Calling. He's putting X equal 3 into this, tapping 3 creatures and 3 lands, holding his Volcanic Island up for a potential 1 mana cost interaction with 2 cards left in his hand. So he can find a free CMC creature, but not paying for Mystic Remora. Code of Calling resolves, and we're gonna find something at CMC 3 to potentially solve this, or scry. We're finding the Manglehorn. This is a pretty good choice, considering that it's going to interact with a flicker of Dockside Extortionist, but it's also going to rip an artifact apart. But it's going definitely to hurt a potential attempt to win with the Teferi. Our problem here now though is that if Teferi doesn't win here, we might pass the turn with a Teferi in play. Sol Ring is being destroyed for the Bruse Thrasios on the Manglehorn ETB. Still with a Teferi on the stack, we have a Mystical Tutor being cast by Malcolm Kediss. This is absolutely terrifying because Teferi not winning the match here could pass the turn basically because of Manglehorn preventing the win. And if that happens, then we might go to Malcolm Kediss' turn with the Teferi still remaining in play. Now, Bruse Thrasios might have to attack and kill the Teferi if he's not able to win here. With his Mystical Tutor, he is finding a Lightning Bolt that he's gonna put on top of his library, and then he's passing on Teferi. Teferi is now in play. Teferi actually bounces Manglehorn and draws a card. And now Teferi has the Grand Abolisher protection, and the stacked piece that is preventing Dockside ETB treasure generation is gone. But he can't bounce Dockside because he's already used Teferi. Diabolic Intent, sacrificing Dockside, and he has 2 treasures left. He finds Final Fortune, which is an extra turn effect, uses the 2 remaining treasures to cast the 2 red spell to take the turn number 2 with his Teferi in play. Now Teferi has already used its very expensive -3 ability, so it can't bounce anything and draw a second card, but still, Grand Abolisher doing good Grand Abolisher things. He goes to his next turn and doesn't pay for fish, as it's going to the graveyard. And then he draws a card for his turn. He's upticking Teferi so he can cast sorceries in instant speed. That might help out, but it's just good to uptick Teferi regardless anyways, I guess. Badland as a land drop. Tainted Pact. this could find his Underworld Breach or whatever he needs. But it is risky, because if he's going for the Underworld Breach here, there is a chance he's just going to accidentally exile keycards like Lion's Eye Diamond that you kinda need to have if you're going to Breach. He doesn't have Breach in his hand, because we accidentally saw Breach in his deck when he searched his library for the final fortune. Now theoretically he could continue, because Lotus Petal is a card that exists. So he's going over, oh there's Brain Freeze. And that's where things get tricky. However, there's a grinding station that is also a replacement for Brain Freeze. So you can in theory continue. There's another also a possible thing he can literally do here. Start flipping cards until he finds Thrasios Oracle, if he's extremely lucky, in the bottom of his library. And if Thrasios Oracle accidentally just is in the bottom of his library, then it will work out. Oh, there's Adnos. But he doesn't have the mana for Adnos anymore. So he has to keep going. Keep digging for anything, literally. Ranger Captain goes, he's keep digging. Mana Crypt is gone. Who needs Mana Crypt, right? Mana Vault is gone. Smothering Tide is gone. The One Ring, who needs that? We're gonna die. There's the Breach. Question is, if we haven't lost Lotus Petal and we haven't lost a potential grinding station, so Breach, big maybe. There's also a Praetor's Grasp to steal cards from your opponents. That could be a temporarily Brain Freeze, in theory. We're digging past the Underworld Breach, hoping for a Thrasios Oracle in the bottom of the library. That's a Flesh Duplicate. Who needs that? We need Thrasios in the bottom. There's Thrasios! No! And that's it. We were hoping here for a Thrasios Oracle to be in the bottom of the library, because if that, or well, third in the bottom, because he has Devotion 3 here total. But that was so sad. He accidentally exiled Lion's Eye Diamond and Brain Freeze. Knowing that he doesn't have any more wins, he might as well look through the deck what is remaining, and digging, but Angel's Grace. Wait, maybe he should have stopped at Angel's Grace. That's it, he has dug out his no, he's having a little bit more library over there. Honestly, maybe he should have stopped at Angel's Grace. Sorry, my bad, it must have been an Enlightened Tutor that I thought was an Angel's Grace, looking at his cards, flipping them. Keep flipping cards just because you can, because why not? It's fun to showcase your deck to people. I kind of want to see his remaining cards. Yeah, showcase that bling. Intuition. And here is the last card, a Force of Will. Force Navigation, that's it. Game is sadly over for Ignacy. Being a little bit unlucky, not flipping into Underworld Breach after first exiling Lion's Eye Diamond and Brain Freeze, not having Thrasios Oracle in the bottom of the library, that just did it. Now in the end step, we are still activating Thrasios and Rograkh because there's a Seedborn Muse and there's a Training Ground, so why not? Deflecting Swat goes to his hand, Mana Confluence comes into play, and one last Thrasios activation, putting a Cyclonic Rift into his hand. We're building up a really powerful game for Thrasios Rograkh Espen right now. Bruse, Thrasios turn soon, but still in the end step, Malcolm Kediss cast Lightning Bolt on Thrasios. But this Lightning Bolt could potentially destroy the Thrasios, but there's a Deflecting Swat changing the target for Lightning Bolt. But then we have a Dispel on the Swat, trying to counterspell it. And Thrasios is killed. He still gets to untap all his stuff, but the engine or the mana sinker into is gone. Bruse Thrasios is casting a Lotus Petal, first thing first. He's casting his Alfetto Alchemist that he flipped into with his Thrasios before. This is a 2-mana cost creature that can untap a creature or an artifact. It's usually used to untap something like the One Ring, or a creature in general, like a Bloom Tender. After this, he passes the turn to Malcolm Kediss. Thrasios Rograkh doesn't have anything to do with all that enormous mana now that his Thrasios is gone. No damage from the Mana Crypt, drawing a card for his turn. He plays a basic island, and he moves to combat. In response to Combatus, we are casting the Cyclonic Rift in the Overload version. This is gonna send the Gilded Drake that
was given to Bruse Thrasios back to Thrasios Rograkh's hand, which means that he can take something again. Second main of Malcolm Kediss. We are recasting the Mana Crypt. Recasting Imperial Recruiter. Phyrexian Metamorph found by the Imperial Recruiter. And he's casting the Phyrexian Metamorph as a Seedborn Muse copy. This means that we're gonna have 2 players untapping all of the time, basically. So now that it's Thrasios Rograkh's turn, Malcolm Kediss also gets to untap. Drawing a card for the turn, and we're casting the Consecrated Sphinx. Big card draw, flying bird. But it is being delayed by Bruse Thrasios, sending it into Vanish, or well, in Suspend, so it's gonna come into play in 3 turns. Which is like never gonna happen. We are not replaying Thrasios, we are recasting Manglehorn here. Because Seedborn Muse, well, the Phyrexian Metamorph that is a Seedborn Muse, is also an artifact. But in response to this, we are casting a Whir of Invention. This is a spell with Inspire, so you can actually tap the Phyrexian Metamorph being an artifact to basically convoke, very similar to convoke. Finding the One Ring. Now Seedborn Muse, or a theoretical Seedborn Muse together with the One Ring, is pretty good. But if Manglehold resolves, we will destroy the Phyrexian Metamorph Seedborn Muse, so the One Ring will be weaker, but still One Ring is pretty good. Still with Manglehorn on the stack, we're tapping the One Ring to draw a card, hoping to find an interaction versus the Manglehorn. But he doesn't find an interaction versus the Manglehorn, so Manglehorn destroys the Phyrexian Metamorph Seedborn Muse. And the turn goes to Bruse Thrasios. Bruse Thrasios is currently sitting with an enormous hand size, and 3 lands in hands needs to catch up somehow. That Cycrypt totally devastated him, more or less. But never give up and never surrender. Bird of Paradise. Changing his mind, playing a tapped Lotus Petal because of Manglehorn. In the end, Bird of Paradise is being cast still. And then a Feather Alchemist. And then he passes. Malcolm Kediss untaps, takes 3 damage from the Mana Crypt and 1 damage from the One Ring. He uses the One Ring to draw 2 cards. Landdrop Mountain. Phantasmal Image. This Phantasmal Image can become a Seedborn Muse, assembling that Seedborn Muse and the One Ring together. This is a very strong synergy. He's also casting Malcolm, and then he wants to move to his end step. But then Lightning Bolt on the Phantasmal Image, forcing it to be sacrificed. This is very key because the Phantasmal Image, being a Seedborn Muse, would have untapped the One Ring and the Palace that can untap a legendary permanent. Turn goes to Thrasios Rograkh. Gilded Drake. He's taking Malcolm Keen Eye Navigator. The reason to do this might because he wants to remove the potential combo from Malcolm here. And then Eldritch Evolution the Malcolm. In response to the Eldritch Evolution, Malcolm Kediss is casting Fairy Mastermind. Phyrexian Metamorph. Now, I've seen Phyrexian Metamorphs become Seedborn Muse, but I've also seen Phyrexian Metamorph become the One Ring. So now Thrasios Rograkh is setting up to have the Seedborn Muse, the One Ring synergy combination, which is going to be very powerful. He also has the Palace, legendary land over there, as you can see, that can untap legendary permanents, which means that he can activate the One Ring twice each turn. But sadly, he accidentally tapped that Palace right now, so the Phyrexian Metamorph becoming the One Ring won't activate twice this round, or this turn. But well, drawing a card first at the very least. And then he casts Thrasios. Mindbreak Trap on the Thrasios from Bruse Thrasios. And the turn is passed to Bruse Thrasios. And everything gets to be untapped on Thrasios Rograkh's side. Casting Thrasios. In response, we're activating the One Ring to draw 2 cards. Fairy Mastermind also triggers and he also draws a card. And then he activates the Palace to untap the One Ring. And then he taps the One Ring again to draw 3 more cards from his deck. And then Thrasios resolves. And then Thrasios Rograkh Ball player follows up with an Ignoble Hierarch. More mana dorks. More mana, more good. And there Ball passes the turn after putting the dork into play. Turn goes to Malcolm Kediss, Samurai Dance Ruler, who loses 2 life to the One Ring, but doesn't fail the Mana Crypt flip, draws a card for turn. Activates the ring to draw 3 cards. But in response to that, we are activating the One Ring from Thrasios Rograkh, Esper. He's drawing 4 cards, then using the land to untap the One Ring once more. And he's activating again to put the burden counter value to 5. And they're drawing 5 cards. Then Fairy Mastermind triggers and draws a card. And then he draws 3 cards from the One Ring. Here we're casting Glinthorn Buccaneer. After casting Glinthorn, he's casting Curiosity, but then Espen, the Thrasios Rograkh player, is following up with a Mental Misstep on it. In response to the Mental Misstep, we're casting a Force of Will, pitching a blue card, losing a life. Samurai trying to protect his Glinthorn Buccaneer. But in response, a Veil of Summer to protect the Mental Misstep. But in response to the Veil of Summer, we have an Offer You Can't Refuse, trying to counterspell the Veil of Summer. Glinthorn still on the stack. He is casting and responding Force of Negation, trying to counterspell the Curiosity still. It happens and Curiosity goes to exile. The Force of Negation was hard casted. Then we have a Wheel of Fortune on the stack post this. But in response to the Wheel of Fortune, we're casting a Force of Will, trying to counterspell it. With nothing left to do, Samurai is attacking with Fairy Mastermind at Espen. And then he passes the turn, as the turn now goes to Espen, untapping. He loses 3 life to the Mana Crypt and loses 5 life to the One Ring, going down to 15. And then draws a card for his turn. Tapping the One Ring, putting a burden counter on it, and drawing 6 cards. Triggering the Fairy Mastermind to also draw a card. He's untapping the One Ring, activating the One Ring, putting burden counter up to 7 and drawing 7 cards. This is what happens when you have the One Ring together with a Seedborn Muse. He's casting Dozen. This is a variant of Grand Abolisher but in green. Players can't play spells only during their own turn. So he's going to try to protect himself. In response, Ball is untapping the One Ring using the Affetto Mage to give interaction to Malcolm Kediss to potentially interact and stop this if he can. But none of them actually has an interaction, and the Dozen, the Falling Leaf, resolves. Once Dozen have resolved, we're casting Gamble. So all we need to do now is find a card and not accidentally entomb it. He currently has 35 cards in his hand. That is going to be randomized. They pick the magic number 8 after shuffling, and he discards the top card of the 8, which is a Sylvan Library randomly chosen by Gamble. Post Gamble, he's casting Green Sun Senate. X equals 2, finding Kinnan with it. And he casts a Dockside. That, together with Kinnan, is an enormous high amount of mana. And then follows up with a Cloudstone Curio. This is a very cool artifact that allows you to return a creature if you cast a creature, or specifically, whenever you cast a non-artifact permanent, you can return a permanent of the same type. So here he can sit and cast a Bird of Paradise, bounce Dockside, and then cast Dockside, bounce Bird of Paradise, making an infinite loop to make infinite treasures. He hasn't gone to combat yet, so he can cast Thrasios post this, and then cast Final Levitation X equals enormous, and attack and win and kill them by simple combat damage. GG's, and Espen wins and goes to the finals.